What's up, y'all? It's Throwing Light. I'm LTJ Reeds, and if you're not throwing light, you're not acting mother effing right. I have got Mr. Fionn here, Walsh, correct?
Yes,
Yes, Mr. Dublin Leather 2024. How are you feeling today?
I am all good. It's evening here, but still awake.
I'm still catching up from jet lag. I got back on Wednesday from London, and I went to Manchester Leather Weekend. That was phenomenal. I think I'm going to come back next year.
Oh yeah, it was probably one of the highlights of my year last year, and I'm actually gutted I missed it this year. Just the the budget and the finances and all that. Just
Of
not this
course,
year. Hopefully next year.
of course. That is something that everybody can relate to. I planned it, Um, went up to go meet Tom Keller. So it was a good time. I want to come back because I kind of picked the wrong dates to go. Like I should have been there like Saturday and Sunday. I was
Yeah.
there Friday and Saturday. So I plan to go back, and my plan actually is to go to Dublin, then go to Manchester, come back to Dublin, and go back home. That's going to be the plan.
Oh,
So I'll get to see you. You can help show me around Dublin.
I could happily show you around and introduce you to all the Leathermen of Ireland, but the ones you didn't meet in Manchester. There's more of us.
I didn't meet that many people from Ireland and Manchester. Quite a few cities, towns, but all right, Beyond. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what got you involved in your community work?
So I think like quite a large number of people, my leather journey properly started during COVID-19, during the lockdown.
Hmm.
I suddenly had kind of a bit of free time and a little bit of extra money because my expenses had gone down through the floor. And it was something, leather was something I'd always been interested in and fascinated by. And I was like, do you know what? This is a time to actually give it a go. And then, unfortunately for my bank account, but very fortunately for me, bought my first piece. And I was like, oh no, absolutely love this. So, as of that point during lockdown, then I just like created an Instagram and started looking online and just seeing who else was in Ireland. And that's when I stumbled across the Leathermen of Ireland page and attended their first lockdown kind of Zoom social in late 2020. And they have now been stuck with me ever since. And then once lockdown ended and they went public, I was there at the very first one. I barely missed one since.
So the Leathermen of Ireland, do they produce the title?
Yes, so Leathermen of Ireland produced the Mr. Dublin Leather title. Yeah.
So
Which started, I was the first.
you're the first?
I was the first, yes.
Congratulations. I was the first too. I was Mr. All Single 2024. Fantastic. So you stepped down?
I stepped down in January of this year and handed it on to Jamie, who is my stash son, who I'm incredibly proud of, and is off to Netherlands to compete in Mr. Leather Europe next weekend. So,
Yes, I did meet Mr. Leatherlands at in Manchester. Um, that is fantastic. So let me go back. So how long have the Leathermen of Ireland been around?
the Leathermen of Ireland started in 2020. It was kind of in response to COVID because from my understanding, is there was a number of previous groups. And COVID, I think, like a lot of places, had a real big effect on the Irish scene and the fact that we had to kind of move online. So the Leathermen of Ireland were created in that space and have only grown strength to strength since then. So it will be 6 years next April, I believe, is the
And so you have been in the community for 6 years too?
it would be yeah, their anniversary is almost mine, exactly. So next summer will be my six year anniversary, yeah.
Fantastic. How do you feel about your growth since you started?
I think it's funny, it's like because I look back on like the pictures from the early days, and in some ways I almost don't recognize that person. It's for I often say this like I didn't kind of understand the that expression that a lot of queer people use around the idea of found family. It wasn't something I particularly related to until I joined the Leathermen and joined the fetish scene in Ireland, and I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. This is my family, and it's really have kind of I've grown in confidence in my own self-esteem, my self-assuredness. Like all of that has really grown and developed because due to the Leathermen and also then the title, kind of really pushing myself and forcing myself to engage in things and meet new people and do stuff I never would have done if I hadn't joined them.
I agree with you. In so many ways, I feel like my life has improved. I walk this line sometimes about, our community being stereotyped as being like overly sexualized and, you know, caring more about sex than doing good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we're trying our hardest. In my mind, I feel like we've moved away a lot of the stereotypes with leather in the United States, but they're still there. Obviously, people that are, less likely to look up information for their own and figure out things are going to keep those stereotypes in mind. You said found family, we say chosen family, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
What so a lot of people come to the leather community or to these communities at large because a lot of the times they are looking for family. Do you come from a supportive family in terms of what you're doing now?
Uh, it the simple answer is I do. It's very much a thing was like they don't really understand it, but they're very much kind of a thing was like if this makes you happy, and as long as you're, looking after yourself and taking care of yourself, and if you're happy, that's the main thing. Like I've tried to explain to them, I tried to explain IML, I tried to explain the title, the whole thing, and they just it's a world completely alien to them. So they don't quite understand what it means and what's going on, but they are behind me and they are supportive of it because they want me to be happy at the end of the day.
Um, so, because a lot of people feel like they have to come out a second time or a third time because as a leather person. What drew you inside the leather community to focus on? Like, what has been something that you felt like you needed to use your voice and your title to help?
So kind of a big thing of mine, even before I started, was I joined the leather scene at 22, which is I mean, it is quite, so I was quite young and I was, like when I started, I was the baby of Leathermen of Ireland. And I found at kind of certain events and in bigger international events and stuff, people often assumed because of my age, they assumed A, my role in scenarios, and B, I found my boundaries not very often respected. And there was a thing I had an incident happen to me at Darklands in 2023, and I was quite publicly made it known what had happened and spoke up about it. And then the following day, the amount of people who came up to me with like similar stories or wanting to thank me for what I said. And I found a lot of guys my own age, kind of in their early to mid 20s, who were like, I've had all this stuff happen to me. No one says anything about it. And it's good to finally hear someone saying it. And then it got kind of became a point then where I was like, can, I can be that voice for kind of younger, newer members of the scene and voice those experiences that I've had. And so that kind of guys who come up in the scene after me or are now younger me, who I look at now, who are kind of 19, 20, starting the scene, being like, if me speaking out means you don't have to go through some of the stuff that I had to go through, then I've done my job. And it was also partly a reason I ran for the title, because it was kind of like, if they can see me and now 27-year-olds kind of take that position in the community to be at the front of it, represent it, and that the community takes what I have to say in my voice seriously, that then younger and newer members can also be like, okay, my voice matters. I can take up space.
Two questions. We're going to do a
Yeah.
fork in the road. I'm going to hold off and go in this direction first. What have you been through? What is something
Um,
particularly challenging that would help uplift younger people in the community?
I think it's I don't know if it's up like this. Like I've had, like I said, I've had a lot of issues around kind of like boundaries being crossed and my consent and my body being violated at events. And it was much more a thing of being like, I know, I think nearly every member of our community has experienced it in some form or another. And it was very much a thing of by speaking out and talking about it to make have less of a stigma about it. And also to show people it's like if this happens to you, you are not alone in this experience. It's not because of you. There are people you can talk to. There are people who understand what you've gone through. So it was about kind of shining a light in it and being and trying to destigmatize it a small bit of being like, it has happened to me. I am standing as an example of someone who has had their consent violated at events, who has had their boundaries crossed and is still in the scene and is still fighting for it, for us, for it to be better and be better to each other and be better to ourselves.
So, have you faced predatory situations being younger in terms of when you bring up consent, maybe people not taking you seriously and just seeing you as a sexual object?
A little bit, and it was very much that it was. There was kind of a couple of different ways. I was like, I think in some ways people kind of assumed that I wouldn't like fight back, kind of a thing. So people would kind of just like reach out and grab me and pull at me or stuff, and it was like you, it was a lot of kind of that stuff. And then there was a kind of a lot of just like stuff around kind of just a lot of non-consensual touching and stuff, whereas just people would kind of it was that people would kind of see you as an object, as like this is a piece of meat almost, as like, you know, young, early 20s, new guy on the scene, you know, twinkish looking at the time. I don't think I could call myself a 28-year-old twink anymore. But like it was very much kind of people saw that as an easy opportunity and didn't think that I would kind of fight back or call them out on it.
So, that is very, very unfortunate. And it brings me now to your relationship with elders in the community.
Mm.
Um, you are representing, people that are younger in the community. What challenges have you found in terms of trying to build relationships with people that are older in the community? Do you feel like you're taken seriously?
I think I am. I think I am now, and like from there were from it wasn't. I obviously don't want to generalize and put a blanket statement over everyone, but yeah, there was initially at the start there were people who were, of course, very welcoming and very wanted to encourage and grow, but there were people who were kind of like, no, this is the way we do things. This is how we speak about things. This is okay. This is not. And it was very much about just trying to just kind of put the idea out there and go, this is also something like, why are we afraid to talk about this? Why is this not something we speak about? And there were, I think it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, I think, in some ways, because there's those people whose minds you're never going to change. But I think by having the conversation and just even having that conversation, there could be someone listening to it who hears it and then it maybe makes them think and go, oh, I've never thought about it that way, or I've never considered this point of view. So it's about by having the conversations and bringing those topics out into the open that it's that thing of destigmatizing ideas just by speaking about things like consent and the experiences that younger and newer members go through in the scene, that to let people kind of hear that they're not alone in those experiences.
I really don't like bringing this up, but I
Mm,
have to because this is part of our culture. But old guard versus new guard.
mm,
We have these conversations sometimes on this show or out in the community about this new idea of, going from leather is just for cis gay men to now leather is for everybody, right?
yeah,
Um, what have you had challenges in being inclusive in your area? How are the relationships in terms with trans people and women in your community?
It's what to say. It's like I would like to think, and how Leathermen of Ireland advertise ourselves as we advertise ourselves as we are Leathermen in name only. That is that we as a community are welcoming to trans individuals, non-binary, gender non-conforming, people who identify as female, as male, is like we are Leathermen in name only. Because and I think that's because yeah, it comes off the idea that there are that leather is specifically for one group of people is something I personally don't prescribe to. And I understand that there are things when you see something like Leathermen of Ireland or Mr. Dublin that it feels like those things are kind of peer exclusionary. But my philosophy has always been, and I believe it's the philosophy of Leathermen of Ireland, that we are, like I said, is Leatherman and Mr. in name only. That sorry, that's the train of thought there.
No, you're fine. I've done this over 100 times. I lose my train of thought often. It's okay.
But I
Um,
think it's the community is richer, and I think every community is richer. It's the more diverse it is, and the more viewpoints you have, and the more points of view I think can only benefit a community. And because that's it's that word community. It's like they're going that if we're already driving the wedges between each other, we're just making it so much easier for the people who are out there who are actively trying to harm us.
we are we try to be very progressive in action here in Austin, comparably. Texas is a very dangerous place for us to be right now. So even me doing the show is
Mm.
taking a risk right now to help the community because we're being targeted. So something I noticed that we do here is do you think okay, so we have two groups here that are supposed to be inclusive for everyone. You know, I don't know what strategies or marketing we need to do to make people come towards us. But we have Austin Gears, which is a non-binary title, pretty much. And then we have a new group that formed here called Austin Leather Crew, by one of my dear friends here, Law Daddy Gary Schumann, who's very involved in our community. Do you think having Leatherman as the word, do you think that optics prevents women and trans people from getting involved? Do you think that we have to be um well, tell me how things are going. So, do have people come towards the Leathermen of Ireland that are not cis gay men that have joined or want to join?
Yeah, we have members who are trans, who are non-binary, gender non-conforming. We have female members. The overall scene in Ireland is quite small, so it is. It's one of my things. Like the scene in Ireland, to be quite blunt, is not incredibly diverse. The leather scene in Ireland does not accurately represent the wider LGBT community in Ireland, and I'm not a member of those communities. I can't really speak for what is the factor that's making them not feel like they can join us. Maybe it is the word Leatherman in the title of the organization. It could be that they come to the events and what they see in the group on the surface is not reflective of the wider community. But my kind of hope would be if people come and act and meet us and talk to us, that they will find a community that is welcoming, that is open, that is encouraging, and wants people to join us. As long as you have a love and a care and appreciation of leather or interest in leather or wider fetish, you are welcome with us. And that's what I hope they find when they come to us. I do think it is an issue we face as a community in Ireland, is about how do we reach out to the wider community to let them know we're here.
So, what has been some of your passionate things that you've been working on in the community? Where have you seen where you could put your skills into doing things? Obviously over here, trans rights are like pretty much our
Mm.
top priority over here right now. I don't think I have a lot of followers that are super aware of Ireland and the culture there.
Mhm.
Um, are you getting anti-trans influences or leadership in Ireland?
It is creeping in, I think, as is overflowing from, unfortunately, from the United States or neighbors in the UK, but it hasn't gained a foothold in terms of representation in government and bodies to the same extent. There is definitely a little bit of a, I think, cultural pushback you're seeing against LGBT rights, trans rights, immigrants, the wider people of color community. You're seeing that cultural pushback, but then there is also a massive grassroots campaign to for trans rights, like trans pride this year in Dublin had an attendance of I think around 10,000 people. It was the largest ever. Pride this year had its largest attendance in years. So the Irish wider public are reacting to this pushback by rallying together and showing support. There is there is a huge level of support in Ireland for LGBT rights, for immigrants, for people of color. Unfortunately, there is a quite loud minority of people who are making themselves known, but thankfully they haven't managed to gain a foothold in kind of government the way they have in other countries. But it's something we have to remain vigilant of because if we take our eye away for it for a little while, it could very quickly. But
So,
we're protected in some ways. I think we aren't, and other countries aren't.
so the energy there is still a little chill.
It is, yeah. It's there are things like there are I think stuff that you encounter in every city that there are certain parts and certain areas I think like you find in anywhere in the world where you do have to kind of just keep your wits about you, be a bit more vigilant. But personally, obviously I can't speak for everyone's experience, but my personal experience is I don't feel particularly kind of vulnerable or threatened if I'm out in public, being quite visibly in my leather or kind of visibly queer. You'd hear the odd kind of snide comment or remark, but I've never felt physically in danger. But obviously, that's my experience. That's not everyone's experience.
Um, in terms of diversity, and inclusion, are there lots of people of color, in the leather groups or, the demographics of that area? Um, are you getting people of color that are interested in being a part of the Leathermen?
We definitely are getting there definitely is. But like as I was saying earlier, I don't think it's not to the like there is a huge like in the wider LGBT scene, there is a large population, particularly from people from like we quite a large South American population in Dublin, and there's a quite a large amount of South American members of the wider LGBT community, but you don't see that proportionally represented in the leather scene. It's like so while it's the thing is like we have people of color, we people represented from different backgrounds, but it's not to this the proportions don't quite line up, if that makes sense. So it's like the amount of people you'd have in the wider LGBT scene doesn't quite line up as it would with the leather scene.
So, when you got your title, or even now, let's talk about like this. What has been your post-sash focus since you stepped down? What work have you continued to do?
My my whole thing was when I stepped down from the sash, it was very much I wanted to go back to what I was doing beforehand, which was being very much more involved kind of behind the scenes, like volunteering, helping out at events, and kind of just helping and helping my skills any way I can. Because I had my year plus IML, which came afterwards, and I had an absolutely fantastic year, but it was very much in my view, it's like I had my year. It is now Jamie's turn is now Mr. Dublin 2025's, and I've seen it as like my time to kind of step back and focus back in on the kind of more behind the scenes work that I was doing before the title, which I think is quite an Irish
There are
way of approaching it.
there are tons of people that feel comfortable behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and I think it's always intriguing when a behind the scenes person runs for a title. And usually it's just for that moment. Like you said, you went back to behind the scenes. And I think some of the great work that we have doing over here is moving into support roles for the rest of the community as title holders or previous title holders. But you don't have to be a title holder to support
No.
the community, obviously. Let me give you one more question, and we'll go into the last question. You got top 20, right?
Yes.
All right. And so if I remember, you walked out with was it cricket or rugby? Like,
So I had what I had in my hand was a hurley. So hurling is one of the national sports here in Ireland. So it's a wood. The only way I can describe it's a wooden stick played with a leather ball. And the only way I can describe it is it's like hockey, but in the air.
okay.
So it was like it wanted, and like the shorts I was wearing are the same style that the players while playing a game you would wear. They're a similar style, the white with the stripes. And it was very much just like I wanted to show something that was very authentically Irish on stage. And it was a point that I was like I had like no one had any idea what I was, but anyone from Ireland immediately was like, it's a hurling outfit. I immediately get the reference and the point of view.
Yeah, we over here in the States, we don't know what the hell that is. So
Yeah. Afterwards, look it
so
up on YouTube.
our Olympians might, but not your rural folk. They're not playing that at all. I mean, like we are bogged down by American football. I mean, like that's all anybody cares about. Obviously, they care more about football than the government. So it's just kind of like that's why we're in the situation we are. I played soccer, which is real football.
But not in this country.
Growing up, and that kind of confusion. Like the average American doesn't understand that football is soccer. It's actually played with your foot. But we
Yeah.
have American football, which includes tackling and kicking and things like that. All right, Fionn, I've got one last question for you. I ask everyone the same question. What is something in our community? It can either be limited to your region or the greater region at whole. What is something that you don't feel like we're shedding enough light on?
But this is very much coming from my own personal experience. That I think that by necessarily just by the way a lot of groups are structured that I think there needs to be a bigger focus on events that aren't centered on in spaces where alcohol is present. We have a huge member of our community, myself included, that either don't drink or are sober or had issues around alcohol in the past. And you see it popping up, like you see the Manchester, they had like the film screening and the bingo and events that aren't centered around pubs or venues with alcohol. So I think, and it's something my sash on here, Jamie, has really been pushing in his year of having events that that are outside of alcohol spaces with alcohol that don't require alcohol, that are sober events that people can enjoy and come to and not have to worry about being in those environments if they're not comfortable with.
We have lots of sober leather people or members at large in the greater LGBTQI plus community. And that is something that a lot of people are really wanting. They're wanting more events outside the bar. Um, the women are asking for that too, trans people. They want to do community picnics. They want to do, whole educational classes for queer history. They want to do all these things. And I think that the gay bar, at its core, um, is stuck obviously in a rigid, cis gay man kind of arena. I've reached out to business here. I'm like, hey, the women say if you put them up on the TV, once a month or once a night, they'll come spend money at the bar. And the mentality is like, well, we serve 98% men. And I don't think the producers understands that the consumer will buy what they put out. So
Yeah.
the women are like, hey, if you put a one leather harness in there and your store, we'll go and we'll see that, we'll buy that, and we'll put in an order for more. You know what I'm saying? So I find that I think it's crucial to our survival to change and adapt, to not be easy to figure out. And I think moving and broadening our alliances with other venues beyond our culture would be very, very advantageous for us right now. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the gay bar and the bar will always have its place in the culture and always has its place. And I do agree. I think it's about having that place, but also there are other places outside that where we can expand to, because also given everything that's going on at the moment, politically and culturally, I think being visible and being seen in more places, it could only do us good.
I don't want to see us reduce to
No.
being in just one space to survive. I want us to try our hardest to push out in new arenas and maybe touch different lives and things like that. So, but sobriety is really, really important. It's important to me, someone that has, I'm about to be 3 years sober of crystal meth. So it's like, there's certain spaces I can't go into that I don't feel comfortable, because not really so much, my community. I'm working through trauma. I'm working through things that I go through when I'm in these spaces. Because first I'd be like, okay, I hope no one around me has drugs, doing drugs, because I don't want them to offer me the drugs. You know what I'm saying? So the bar will likely bring things into, your life or the community that are a little toxic, and it's going to take it's going to take not being so rigid and being a little bit more flexible to move forward and create spaces where we all can be, and we don't have to feel weird about temptation and all that type of stuff. If you get what I'm saying.
Mm. Yeah, also congrats on 3 years, not an easy feat.
Yes, it's not. And it's a bigger problem that we're not addressing it. It's like I feel like our drug usage and, addiction is kind of like pandemic of our own in our community, where it might be more concentrated and a lot more happening than if you were just in like a traditional straight community, because of all the trauma we're put through every day and trying to cope with that. So, okay, Fionn, we're at the end. There's one thing you have to do before we leave. Are you ready?
And we'll find out.
All right. So when I count to three, you're going to close the show. You're going to say, if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. You ready?
Okay.
Here we go. This has been executed well, 100 out of 112 times. So let's just see how this goes. All right. One, two, three.
If you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. It's long before.
There you go. See, you did it. Yeah. Surprisingly, that's hard for some people.
Put on the spot. Put out pressure.
All right, Fiona, I had such a great time. I don't know. Are you planning on going to IML?
No, I not next year, unfortunately, but my hopefully I
So
will be cheering on my SAS son Jamie from Ireland.
listen to me, Fiona. I will be back. I will be back to Ireland,
Yes.
Manchester next year. Mark my word. So you will get to see me because I plan on
I
spending 2 days in Ireland and then going to Manchester. So we will stay in touch. And, yeah, I think that's about all we got here. So thank you to everyone that's watching. Thank you again, Fiona. This has been Throwing Light, and we're out.